Kelari of the Vierks Collective believed in precision. Her people had crossed star systems not through strength or conquest, but through calculation. Every decision they made was measured, refined, and improved until nothing unnecessary remained. Emotion was not ignored, but it was guided, shaped, and limited so it would never interfere with logic. Food, especially, was a science to the Vierks. Meals were designed by experts. Every bite delivered exact nutrition. Flavor was adjustable through neural response layers. Satisfaction was calculated, not guessed. Hunger, fatigue, and stress could all be reduced to manageable levels with the correct formula. That was why Kelari did not understand humans. She stood inside the Central Exchange Station, a massive rotating structure where dozens of species met to trade knowledge, culture, and technology. The station smelled of metal, recycled air, and faint traces of foreign biology. Kelari barely noticed any of it. Her attention was fixed on the human across from her. His name was Ethan Hale. He was not impressive by Vierk's standards. He had no enhanced posture implants. His clothing was practical and worn. His movements were relaxed, almost careless. He leaned against a cargo crate as if it were a chair, holding a small, wrapped object in one hand. "You sure you don't want one?" Ethan asked, his voice calm and friendly. "They're better when they're still warm." Kelari tilted her head slightly, a Vierk's gesture that signaled polite confusion. "I have already consumed my nutritional intake for this cycle," she replied. "Thank you." Ethan smiled, the corners of his mouth lifting in a way Kelari had learned meant friendliness, not dominance. "It's not just about fuel," he said. "It's food." Kelari glanced at the object in his hand. According to her visual translator, it was a sausage. The word itself carried strange historical meanings, most of them irrelevant or outdated. The item looked dense, uneven, and poorly structured. No visible nutrient markings, no adaptive interface. Primitive. Around them, several other delegates lingered nearby, pretending not to listen while listening very carefully. A Talon merchant paused mid-step. A Rune observer adjusted his sensory frills. Humans always attracted attention, often without realizing it. Kelari felt a familiar sense of quiet confidence. Humans were clever, yes. They adapted quickly and formed strong social bonds. But their technology often relied on intuition rather than optimization. Their culture was full of inefficiencies they called tradition. Food was one of those inefficiencies. "My people design meals to achieve satisfaction with minimal waste," Kelari said calmly. "Your offering appears excessive," Ethan laughed softly. "Yeah, I've heard that before." He unwrapped the sausage halfway, releasing a rich, unfamiliar scent into the air. Kelari's internal filters immediately analyzed it. High protein, moderate fats. Spices with no clear functional purpose. Heat-based preparation, uneven distribution. It made no sense. And yet her sensory nodes registered a mild spike, not hunger, curiosity. "That smell," she said slowly, "is unstructured." "That's the point," Ethan replied. Kelari folded her hands behind her back. "I find it unlikely that such a simple item could provide meaningful satisfaction." A Talon nearby made a quiet clicking sound, amused. Ethan noticed and raised an eyebrow. "Tell you what," he said, "try it. If you hate it, I'll owe you one favor, any reasonable favor." Kelari considered this. Humans placed strange value on favors. Social debt meant more to them than efficiency charts ever could. Accepting would cost her nothing. Very well. She extended a slim, pale hand. Ethan carefully broke off a small piece and placed it on a sterile sample plate. Kelari scanned it one final time. No hidden enhancements, no chemical tricks. She raised it to her mouth and took a small bite. The station noise faded. The first sensation was warmth. Not temperature alone, but something deeper, spreading gently rather than sharply. Then came flavor, not one flavor, but many, layered and unfolding in sequence. Salt, smoke, spice, something rich and grounding beneath it all. Her neural response system hesitated. This was not how food was supposed to work. Vierk's meals delivered immediate clarity. This did not. Instead, it moved slowly, almost patiently, as if waiting for her to notice it properly. Her memory centers activated unexpectedly, pulling up impressions that were not her own, images of shared meals, long cycles of cooperation, survival through scarcity. Kelari froze. Ethan watched her carefully. "Okay," he said. "That look can go either way." She swallowed. "I do not dislike it," she said. That alone caused murmurs among the nearby observers. She took another bite, larger this time. The effect deepened. Her stress indicators dropped slightly, not enough to be dramatic, but enough to be undeniable. "This food," she said, choosing her words carefully, "does not simply satisfy hunger." Ethan nodded. "Yeah. It creates context," she continued. "It encourages reflection, memory, connection." He smiled again, this time softer. "We cook stories into our food." Kalari looked at him sharply. "That is not scientifically possible. Maybe not on purpose," he said, "but it happens anyway." She finished the small piece in silence. The station seemed louder now, sharper, as if her senses had adjusted. She felt steadier, though she could not explain why. Around them, delegates exchanged looks. One of the Rune leaned closer, antennae twitching. "Is the human item effective?" it asked. Kalari straightened. "It is unexpected," Ethan chuckled. "That's human engineering for you." Kalari did not respond. Her mind was already racing, breaking down the experience, trying to fit it into models that suddenly felt incomplete. If such a simple object could influence emotional balance without any visible technology, what else had humanity created without realizing its full impact? She looked at the remaining sausage in Ethan's hand, no longer dismissive. "May I have another sample?" she asked. Ethan laughed. "Careful, Ambassador, that's how it starts." Kalari did not understand what he meant. But for the first time since joining the exchange, she suspected that humanity's greatest strength was not what they built, but what they carried with them, unnoticed, into the stars. And that thought unsettled her far more than any advanced weapon ever could. Kalari did not sleep that cycle. Viewership did not truly sleep the way humans did, but they entered a low-cognition state meant for mental recovery. Kalari attempted it twice and failed both times. Her thoughts kept returning to the same subject, replaying sensations and data again and again. The sausage. That single human food item had done something no Viewership-designed meal ever had. It had not overwhelmed her senses or forced balance through control. Instead, it had invited her mind to move on its own path. That was deeply uncomfortable and deeply fascinating. When the station lights shifted to simulate morning for human schedules, Kalari was already awake and preparing reports. Data flowed across her display, but numbers alone felt incomplete. She added annotations, something she rarely did. Words like emotional resonance, memory activation, and unstructured satisfaction appeared again and again. These were not proper scientific terms. Yet they were accurate. Later that cycle, she returned to the trade corridor where she had met Ethan. The area was busier now. Crates floated along magnetic rails. Translators hummed. Voices from many species blended into a constant sound that humans called background noise. Ethan was there, exactly where she expected him to be, sitting on the same cargo crate. This time he was sharing food with two other humans. They laughed easily, passing items back and forth without formal protocol. Kalari paused at a distance, observing. Humans did not treat eating as an isolated act. It was social. Shared, inefficient by Viewership standards, they talked while consuming nutrients. They paused, reacted, smiled. No focus on optimization. And yet their stress markers taken from public health data were often lower during meals than during rest cycles. It did not align with logic. Ethan noticed her and waved. "Hey, Ambassador." The other human straightened slightly, suddenly aware of her status. Kalari approached. "I require further understanding," she said directly. "About your food," Ethan laughed. "You're really not going to let that go, are you?" "No," she said. "I am not." He dismissed his companions with a gesture, promising to meet them later. They left still smiling, clearly amused by the situation. Ethan stood and motioned for Kalari to follow him. "There's a place," he said. "Human section, nothing fancy." They walked through several corridors. The architecture slowly shifted. Clean lines gave way to curved surfaces. Colors became warmer. Lights dimmed slightly. Sounds changed too, softer and less mechanical. Kalari noticed her posture relaxing without conscious command. "This environment is inefficient," she said. "Yeah," Ethan replied. "That's why we like it." They entered a small human-run food space. It smelled rich and complex, not overpowering but layered. Kalari's filters worked hard, classifying dozens of compounds at once. Several species were present inside. A Talon sat near the wall, eating slowly. Arun hovered near a counter, observing two humans cook with visible curiosity. The humans behind the counter greeted Ethan by name. "What can I get you?" one asked. Ethan looked at Kalari. You want the full experience or something simple? She hesitated. Define full. He grinned. Trust me. Against her instincts, she nodded. They sat at a table made of real wood, an absurdly fragile material by Vyark's standards. Kalari ran a hand across the surface, feeling uneven texture. Food arrived soon after. Not just sausage this time, but bread, vegetables, sauces, everything separate, nothing perfectly aligned. Kalari stared at it. This appears excessive. It's choice, Ethan said. You don't have to eat everything, you decide. Decision during eating, another inefficiency. She began cautiously, tasting each item separately, then together as Ethan suggested. The experience changed depending on the order. No two bites were the same. Her mind responded differently each time. This variability, she said slowly, would be considered a flaw in Vyark's design. Ethan shrugged. For us, it's the point. Kalari activated a discrete recorder. Explain, he leaned back. Humans don't just eat to live, we eat to remember, to feel safe. To connect with people who aren't there anymore. A recipe can carry a family, a place, even a whole history. Kalari processed this in silence. Your species encodes emotional data into food, she said. Yeah, he replied. Accidentally, mostly. That word again. Accidental excellence. As Kalari continued eating, she noticed something else. Other species were watching her now, carefully, quietly. Word had spread faster than she expected. A Talon approached hesitantly. Ambassador Kalari, it said, is the human nourishment effective? Kalari considered her answer. Official protocol demanded caution, but honesty demanded truth. Yes, she said, in ways we did not predict. That was enough. Within hours, requests began, first for samples, then for explanations, then for trade discussions. Kalari found herself in an emergency council meeting later that cycle. Holographic figures of Vyark's leaders filled the chamber. You are suggesting, one said, that human food has psychological benefits beyond nutrition. Yes, Kalari replied. And that these benefits emerge from cultural practices, not advanced technology. This contradicts our models, another said. So did human adaptability, Kalari answered calmly, until it did not. She shared her data, neural responses, stress markers, behavioral changes. The evidence was clear even if the cause was uncomfortable. One elder leaned forward. Are you compromised by exposure? Kalari paused, then answered truthfully. I am influenced but not impaired. The council fell silent. Meanwhile, on the station, human food spaces became more crowded. Species that had never eaten for pleasure began to experiment. Reactions varied, some disliked it, some were confused, some were changed. Ethan watched it all with quiet amusement. Humans had always shared food. It never occurred to them that it was a strategic advantage. Kalari joined him again near the end of the cycle. You have disrupted interspecies equilibrium, she said. He smiled. Just lunch. She looked at him seriously. Humanity does many things without realizing their impact. Yeah, he said. So do you. Kalari considered that. For the first time, she wondered how many Vyark's efficiencies had erased something valuable without them noticing. As she left the human section, carrying recorded recipes and cultural notes, she understood one thing clearly. Humanity was not powerful because it optimized everything. It was powerful because it allowed imperfection to carry meaning. And the galaxy was only beginning to taste the consequences of that. The central exchange station changed slowly at first, then all at once. Kalari noticed it during her third cycle of observation. The corridors closest to the human sector no longer felt like neutral ground. Sounds lingered longer. Conversations happened more often. Species that usually kept strict personal distance now sat closer together, especially near food spaces. It was subtle but measurable. She stood on an upper platform, watching below as a mixed group shared a table. A Talon clicked softly while chewing. A rune adjusted its color patterns in slow waves, a sign of calm focus. Two humans talked while eating, their voices relaxed. None of them were rushing. Kalari recorded the scene. Her internal systems flagged the behavior as unusual but non-threatening. Social cohesion indicators were rising. This should not have been possible. By design, the exchange station minimized long-term emotional bonding. It was meant for trade, not connection. Too much attachment led to conflict, inefficiency, bias. Yet here it was, forming anyway, around human food. Kalari moved toward a nearby terminal and accessed station-wide data. Consumption of human meals had increased by 40% in less than a standard week. Reports of stress-related incidents had decreased. Requests for mediation services were down. No treaties had been signed. No technology had been exchanged. Only food. Later that cycle, Kalari attended a scheduled meeting with representatives from 3 other species. The Talon delegate arrived first, carrying a small, sealed container. "I brought a human dish," it said, placing the container on the table. "I wish to understand it better." Kalari inclined her head, and, the Talon hesitated. "It is comforting," that word again. The Rune delegate arrived next, its surface shifting colors rapidly. "We attempted preparation," it said, "without full cultural context." "And?" Kalari asked. "It was unsatisfying," the Rune replied. "But when a human assisted, the result changed significantly." Kalari made a note. Human involvement mattered. The final delegate, a Kesh observer, spoke last. "We believe the humans are unaware of the effect." "That aligns with my findings," Kalari said. "Their methods are intuitive, not intentional." The Talon leaned forward. "Then this is dangerous." Kalari did not disagree. Not dangerous in the way weapons were dangerous, but in a deeper way. Influence without intent. Change without command. Humanity was reshaping the station simply by being itself. After the meeting, Kalari sought out Ethan again. She found him in the same human food space, this time helping a non-human cook adjust a recipe. He explained patiently, using simple words and gestures. Kalari waited until he finished. "You are altering interspecies behavior," she said. Ethan wiped his hands and smiled tiredly. "You say that like it's a bad thing." "It is unplanned," she replied, "and therefore unpredictable," he nodded. "Yeah, that's fair," she studied him. "Why do humans share food so freely?" Ethan thought for a moment. "Because it's how we survived." Long before space, long before cities, sharing food meant trust. If you ate with someone, you weren't enemies, at least for that moment. Kalari processed this. "You are exporting a survival instinct," she said. "Guess so," he replied. Kalari's communicator activated suddenly. An urgent signal from the Vierk's council, priority level high. She turned away and accepted the call. The council chamber appeared around her, filled with familiar forms. Their expressions were controlled, but concern was evident. "Ambassador," the lead elder said, "reports indicate rising cultural influence from humanity." "Yes," Kalari replied, "that influence is real." "Do you recommend intervention?" Kalari paused. Intervention would mean regulation, limitation. Possibly restriction of human cultural exchange. It would be efficient, but efficient did not always mean correct. "Intervention may reduce risk," she said carefully, "but it will also eliminate opportunity." "Explain," the elder said. "Human practices improve morale, cooperation, and long-term stability without force or coercion," Kalari said. "They do not dominate, they invite." Silence followed. Another council member spoke. "And if humanity chooses to weaponize this?" "They have not," Kalari replied. "And based on current evidence, they likely would not recognize it as a weapon." The elder studied her. "You are defending them." "I am explaining them," Kalari said. "There is a difference." The council recessed without decision. Kalari returned to the station floor feeling something unfamiliar, uncertainty mixed with anticipation. Over the next cycles, the influence spread further. Human food spaces became neutral meeting grounds, disputes softened over shared meals. Negotiations lasted longer but ended more often in agreement. Humans remained mostly unaware. They complained about long lines and supply shortages. They joked about aliens liking weird stuff. They did not see the larger pattern. Kalari did. She conducted a controlled experiment. She invited representatives from 5 species to a private meal prepared with human assistance. No agenda, no negotiations. The result was undeniable. Conversation flowed more easily. Defensive postures relaxed. Shared laughter occurred, even among species that rarely expressed such behavior. Afterward, one delegate admitted, "I feel less alone." Kalari ended the session early, her thoughts racing. That cycle, she reviewed human history more deeply. Not wars or technologies, but daily life. Kitchens, markets, family meals, rituals around food. Humans had always used meals to mark time, to heal grief, to celebrate survival. They had turned necessity into meaning. Kalari realized then that humanity's strength was not intelligence alone, but integration. They did not separate function from feeling. They combined them. This was not efficient, it was powerful. She met Ethan again near the end of the cycle, standing by a viewport that looked out into open space. Stars drifted slowly past. "The council is concerned," she told him. "About what?" he asked. "About you," she said, "and your food." He laughed quietly. "Figures." "You may soon be asked to limit cultural sharing," Kellari continued. Ethan frowned. "Why?" "Because it works," she said. He was silent for a long moment. "We're not trying to change anyone." "I know," she replied. "That is the problem." He looked at her then, really looked. "What do you think should happen?" Kellari considered the stars. "I think the galaxy must decide whether it values control over connection," she said. Ethan smiled slightly. "Good luck with that." Kellari allowed herself a small, rare expression of amusement. As she returned to her quarters, she understood the truth clearly now. Humanity had not come to the stars to conquer. They had come carrying warmth, memory, and shared tables. And the galaxy was changing, not because humans demanded it, but because, once tasted, something simple and human was very hard to give up. The decision came sooner than Kellari expected. The Vierks Council summoned her during a cycle when the station was unusually quiet. Not silent, but calm in a way that felt deliberate, as if the station itself was holding its breath. Kellari stood in the projection chamber, her posture formal, her thoughts steady. The council members appeared one by one, their forms sharp and clear. "Ambassador Kellari," the lead elder said, "the situation has reached a threshold." "I anticipated this," Kellari replied. "Human cultural influence continues to expand," another council member said. "Station behavior models no longer match predictions," Kellari nodded. "Because the models did not account for voluntary connection." "That is not a stable variable," the elder replied. "Neither is isolation," Kellari said calmly. A pause followed. Then the elder spoke again. "We have reviewed your reports. We acknowledge the benefits. However, we must consider long-term balance." Kellari waited. "The council has decided," the elder continued, "to propose a formal evaluation of human cultural exports beginning with food practices." Kellari felt a familiar tightening in her core. "Define evaluation." "Limits," the elder said. "Controlled distribution, designated zones, oversight, efficiency, containment." Kellari understood the logic. She also understood the cost. "Such action will alter trust," she said. "Not only with humans, but among all species who have adopted these practices." "Trust is secondary to stability," another council member replied. Kellari looked directly at them. "Stability achieved through suppression is temporary." Silence followed. "You have grown attached," the elder said. "I have grown informed," Kellari answered. "There is a difference." The council dismissed her with no final order, only a warning. Decisions would be announced soon. Kellari left the chamber with measured steps, but her thoughts moved quickly. She knew what regulation would mean. Humans would comply, confused but cooperative. They always did. And the station would lose something it did not know how to replace. She went to find Ethan. He was not in the food space this time. Instead, she found him in a supply bay, sorting containers with a few other humans. Their movements were slower than usual. The mood was different. "You heard," she said. He nodded. "Word travels fast." "They may restrict food sharing," she said, "or formalize it in ways that remove its meaning." Ethan leaned against a crate. "Yeah, that tracks." "You are not angry," Kellari observed. He shrugged. "Hard to be angry at people trying to stay in control. Humans have been there." She studied him. "If asked, would you stop?" He thought for a long moment. "If it meant keeping peace, probably." Kellari felt something unexpected then. Not fear, not frustration, loss. "That would be unfortunate," she said quietly. Ethan smiled gently. "You really like the sausage, huh?" She almost corrected him. Then she stopped. "Yes," she said. "I did." The announcement came the next cycle. A station-wide broadcast informed all species that human food practices would be reviewed. No immediate bans, but new guidelines would be introduced. Shared spaces would require permits. Distribution would be monitored. Reactions were immediate, not protests, not outrage, disappointment. Kellari observed it everywhere, in the way conversations shortened, in the way meals became quieter. Species who had grown used to gathering now hesitated, unsure if they were allowed to continue. Humans followed the rules, they always did. The food spaces remained open, but something was missing. The warmth was still there, but guarded. Smiles were polite, not easy. Stress indicators rose. Negotiations grew tense again. Kellari compiled the data and sent it to the council without comment. Then she did something she had never done before. She requested permission to host a meal, not as a Vierks ambassador, but as an individual. The request confused the council. Personal meals were not illegal. They were simply irrelevant. Permission was granted. Kalari chose a small observation lounge overlooking the stars, neutral ground, no symbols. She invited representatives from several species, including humans. She did not call it a meeting. She called it dinner. Ethan arrived early carrying containers. "Didn't think you were the hosting type," he said. "Neither did I," Kalari replied. Others arrived slowly. Some hesitant, some curious. There were no speeches, no agenda, they ate. At first, conversation was careful, then someone laughed, someone else shared a story. The tension eased not dramatically, but steadily. Kalari watched it happen. This was not influence, it was alignment. After the meal, no one rushed to leave. Kalari recorded the data, then did something unexpected. She deleted the numbers. The next council session was tense. "You violated protocol," the elder said. "I followed it," Kalari replied. "No regulations were broken." "You hosted an unmonitored cultural exchange." "I hosted a meal," the elder studied her. "You are forcing our hand." "No," Kalari said. "I am offering evidence you cannot ignore." She shared her final report, not charts, not projections, observations, stories. Testimonials from other species, calm statements about feeling understood, about cooperation returning when meals were shared freely. "This is not chaos," Kalari said. "This is balance achieved through choice." The council was silent for a long time. Finally, the elder spoke. "What do you recommend?" Kalari did not hesitate. "Trust," she said. "Not blind trust, but allowance. Let humans continue as they are, observe, learn." "And if it changes us?" the elder asked. "It already has," Kalari replied. "The question is whether we resist growth because it is inefficient." The vote was close, but it passed. Restrictions were lifted. Guidelines softened. Human food spaces returned to what they had been. The station breathed again. Humans noticed something had changed, but not the details. They joked about paperwork being reduced. They went back to cooking, sharing, inviting. Ethan found Kalari near the viewport once more. "So," he said, "guess we're back on the menu." "Yes," Kalari replied. He smiled. "You know, for a species obsessed with control, you took a big risk." Kalari looked at the stars. "So did humanity when it chose to bring its whole self into the galaxy." Ethan was quiet for a moment. "We don't really know how to be any other way." "That," Kalari said, "is your greatest strength." In the cycles that followed, the exchange station became known for something new. Not trade volume, not efficiency, but cooperation. Human food became standard on long missions, not mandatory but requested. Other species adapted recipes, added their own traditions. Meals evolved. Humans did not lead this change, they simply welcomed it. Kalari continued her work, but with a new understanding. Optimization had its place, precision mattered, but meaning mattered more. One quiet cycle, she sat alone with a simple human meal, watching the stars drift by. She ate slowly, thoughtfully, satisfied, not because the food was perfect, but because it was shared, remembered, and human. And somewhere in the vast galaxy, that simple truth was quietly reshaping the future. Not with force, not with fear, but with something far more powerful, a table and an open seat.